Alright guys, so this far in the series we have been using Cypress with JavaScript. And this far we have written our test cases, created page classes to implement page object model, then we added plugins to extend the default Cypress features. We have also created some custom commands, but all using JavaScript. Alright? Well, I'm sure you must have heard about TypeScript. Okay, it's a superset of JavaScript, and over the last couple of years, it has gained a lot of popularity. Now, TypeScript offers strict typing and object-oriented programming features, which basically enables programmers to find bugs at the compile time and write usable and maintainable code. Now, for example, a JavaScript function does not perform any checking on number and type of parameters. This would lead to issues at runtime, isn't it? In TypeScript, we can easily catch this issue at the development time only. That is, even before you compile your program. So let's see an example of the same. This is a simple login function, okay, which accepts email and password, okay, and whatever email and password that you're providing to this function while invoking this function, okay, those things would be then typed in the respective email and password page, okay. Now down below in the test case, you could see if I just uncomment this line, okay, in here, right, you see we are not providing what the email and password. So these are the arguments. This is how JavaScript works, right? None of the arguments are mandatory, okay. But the thing is, yes, it is not complaining here, but when you run this, okay, this test case would fail because the application would not allow us to log in into the application without providing the valid credentials, right? Let us now do one thing. Let us just change this JS file to TS file. So JS stands for JavaScript and TS stands for TypeScript. If we do so, let's wait for this to complete and let's select no for now. And in this file now, we start seeing a lot of errors, but ignore all the other errors for now and concentrate on line number 13. Now we immediately get an error in here, okay, and it's telling us that we have not provided the email. Once you provide the email, it starts talking about this other parameter, which is password, okay. Now to fix this error, all we need to do is we have to provide in the arguments, okay. The Visual Studio Code is happy now. Alright guys, so we can take this a step forward, and what we can also do is we can provide in the data type, okay. The email should be of data type string, and for password, currently, I mean, this is another important thing. If you know TypeScript, you already know it. So if you do not provide in any data type or any variable or argument, the default data type is any, right? So password is also of type string. So we do it like this. And what you can also do is you can also define the data type of this function, and void represents nothing. You're not returning anything from this function, all right? So this gives you even more control. So if you decide to pass in any other data type now, okay, let me cut these, and you say 1 and 2, you again get the error. And it says argument of type number is not assignable to parameter of type string. Make sense? All right. Now I've also created a playlist on TypeScript for QA and beginners. In there, I've talked about OOPS concept in TypeScript, interfaces, generics, enums, tuples, strict typing, function type and signature, tuning TypeScript compiler using Tsconfig.json, modules in TypeScript, type definition file, etc. I'll post the link of the same down below in the description, and it is also flashed at the top right corner of this video. So I highly recommend you go and check that out to get hold of a lot of TypeScript related concepts, since it is important to know whether it is related to TypeScript or Cypress. Now, the great news is Cypress comes with TypeScript support out of the box. Also, Cypress is shipped with official type declaration for TypeScript. This allows you to write your test in TypeScript. On previous versions of Cypress, we had to configure Webpack preprocessor to work with TypeScript in Cypress. No such hassles anymore. Now I mentioned type declaration. What's that? Now it's a file with .t.ts extension. Great, but how they are different from normal TypeScript files? I'll show you. This one is a TypeScript file. In part 3 of this video series, I created one more, which was index.d.ts. Okay. Now we are comparing these two files. What's the difference between a normal TS file and a .d.ts file? The type declaration file, as the name suggests, only contain the type declaration and not the actual source code. Actual source code is your business logic. Okay, so let's open this, and you could see it is only declaring. Okay, so there's a login function. Okay, this is the JS doc for that particular thing, and this particular function takes in email and a string. All right, and because it's a TS file, at the end of the day, we can pass in the data type. All right, great. So this is nothing basically. In TypeScript, we call this as function signature. Okay, these files basically .d.ts are meant to only provide aid to the development process like intelligence and code completion. So this is my custom command. I'll say cy dot, and then it will tell me that hey, there's a login command which accepts two arguments, email and password, and their data type is of type string. Okay, and these files, they do not become part of the compilation itself, while the other file with just ts extension, which is this artist case, okay, this contains the business logic and hence become part of the compilation. Okay, all right, so now let's open the Cypress TypeScript documentation. So in here it says Cypress ships with official type declaration. Let us open this link, and it is telling us that yeah, you will need to have TypeScript 3.4 plus installed within your project to have TypeScript support within Cypress. Right, so for Cypress, I guess the minimum version is 4 dot something, right, and you require TypeScript version 3.4, and there's nothing to be worried about because at this time, right, I think we are running 7.4 version of Cypress, and we are running 4.2, I guess, version of TypeScript, so we're pretty good, right? So these are opened, and let us see. Okay, so we have all these .d.ts, and in part 3 we looked at this file, and from this file, I picked the concept that how can I create my own type declaration file for the custom commands, right? All right, so why don't we see these? Where are these files? So in node modules, you go to Cypress, open the Cypress and open the types, and then you see all these files. Okay, so when we read this line, Cypress ships with this official declaration, we are referring to those files. All right, now what does it say? It talks about the code editor, and we are using Visual Studio Code, and we are good with that because Visual Studio Code supports the TypeScript out of the box, right? So there are no issues in there. We are good. Then it's talking about creating this Tsconfig.json file. Okay, again, to set up the intelligence, right, for JavaScript, we created Jsconfig.json. So for now, you can imagine, like, for TypeScript project, you got to create Tsconfig.json, but trust me, this is the most important file in any TypeScript project. All right, so for you, it's important to understand, what all these options are. Okay, so I'll walk you through all of these. Then it's talking about custom command. Okay, how do we set up custom command? And in here you see index.ts. I mean, by default, the project that you get, the boilerplate code when you install Cypress and try to open Cypress, you get JavaScript files. But in here you see index.ts. Okay, so we got to convert the existing JS files into TypeScript file. All right, guys. So next, I mean, it's talking about, okay, we have already done that. We have created our index.d.ts in part 3 itself, so we will do it. And yeah, let's scroll down. Okay, plugin. So okay, we are also going to work with plugin, and in here you see plugin index.ts again. I mean, they have changed the default extension to, from JavaScript to TS. So okay, we are going to touch this part as well. So we are also going to cover one plugin so that we can touch this file. And yeah, clashing types, we will understand that as well. All right, not bad. So guys, I've already created a repository on GitHub, and you know, this is for your reference, just in case you need to match your code against what I'm going to show in this video. All right, now this sample project contains test cases around Cypress core automation testing concepts like page object model. Number two, plugin, and we are going to work on file upload plugin. Number three, data driven. So we are going to use JSON files in the fixture, right, to make our test cases data driven. Number four, task, to execute code in Node.js, okay, which means that outside a browser, right? I've already explained that in my CY.task video, I guess part 28, right? Then we are also going to work on custom commands. That's number five. Then number six is we are going to, work on reporting using Mocasum report, all right? The last one is we're going to set up the Tsconfig in our TypeScript project. All right, and I believe this will broadly touch base all the different files and folders we require to tune or set up or to be able to work with TypeScript in Cypress. So currently, everything in here, as you could see, right, is in JS format. Okay, even the pages, right, and we have this Jsconfig.json. So we have to start converting this into a TypeScript project. All right. So guys, there are two things, right? Either you are starting a project from scratch, which means that you'll not have these page files, you'll not have jsconfig.json. You just get a boilerplate code, and you will have under this integration or sample folder, which anyhow you're going to delete. And then you have got like you have to deal with this index.js and probably this command.js and index.js. These would be the only JS files, right? So you can easily change that. And for like others who already have the JavaScript project, and they feel like the need to migrate to TypeScript, so this particular video targets both of you. Okay, so let's see that. So we've already converted this JS into TS. Okay, let's move up and look at this folder fixtures, guys. So since these are JSON files, so you can read JSON in TypeScript the way you read them in JavaScript, so exactly no difference. In Cypress framework we use CY fixtures, so basically there would be no difference. Okay, so let's move on to the next integration. We already covered it. Now the thing is, guys, in here you see a lot of problems. Okay, and it says cannot find it says cannot find in CY, right? So we know that in the jsconfig.json we did something, right? So what did we do? We added this node module Cypress and things of that nature. We also added the d.d.ts file, right? So why not I just rename this to something. So I just rename it to test.json.txt, like so. Next we move on to plugins, and let's change it to TS. And that's the first thing we have to do. Okay guys, now we also need to make one more change in here, and it is related to how we are exporting modules into TypeScript. So instead of module.export, we say export, okay, default, okay, and then we get rid of this, like so. Okay, so this is what we have to do now. As I showed you that you can add the type, so we can add the type for these. Okay, now the type for this would be Cypress dot plugin events, right? Because on is used for events, so we say Cypress plugin events. And now this config is of type Cypress dot plugin config options. Okay, so we have this. All right, so this is how we can change this file, and rest of the things, guys, would remain the same. right? So you have this one task returning here, which is invoking this function, which is simply returning okay, right? So we are done with this. We have made all the changes, so no issues. Now we'll leave the report part as it is, because at the end, we are going to run this project using the command line interface, and we are expecting that it is going to generate this kind of report. And the last test case is failing, and hence we are also capturing the screenshot. Okay, so this is what we are going to achieve. All right, let's come back. So next is then support. Obviously, we got to change this to TS file. All right, and now got to add in here the data type. Okay, and we've got to add for this as well, and then the return type of the function. Since this function is not returning anything, it's just performing some actions on the user interface, so the return type is void. All right, let me save this and close this as well. And the next one is index.js. Let us change this as well to TypeScript. So we are just importing it, so we don't need to make any change in here. Okay, then I move on to page. Okay, and in page we have this login.js, guys. If I change it to ts, let's see what all things I need to do. So we make a TypeScript file, and in here we get the error. Why we are getting this error? Because property email does not exist on type login. Okay, now see, I mean, that's another advantage. So this is how we do that in JavaScript, but TypeScript confirms that this property must exist on the object. All right. And now the thing is, in TypeScript, okay, either you have to initialize the property outside the constructor or within the constructor. Now, if the values are static, right, I don't need to assign the values within the constructor like so. I can do it like this. Okay, and then I can say I can also add in the modifiers. So I can simply add the modifiers like so, because I don't want these fields to be accessible outside the class. Now we also have to get rid of this, because this is how we do. We say private and email, private password, private submit. And guys, we also say string, right? So we got to add the data type as well. Now there are a few more things like static members, so you can also make these as static, and in that case you don't need to create the instance of this class. You can access these properties using the class name itself. But since you are making them private, so you anyhow need to create a static member method, right, to access these properties. But leave these like so for now. All right, and then we got to change this thing as well slightly. So we just say export. We write the export in here, again related to how modules work into TypeScript. Right, guys, so we have made the changes to our page class as well. So we are going to close it. Okay, so we have the error in here, so we can fix it like so. Okay, and there is no JS file, so we leave it like so. Alright, so the next is we have to create the tsconfig.json file for this project, so that we can compile this project as per our requirement. Now what you can do is you can create it manually, and it's very simple. So you go to the root of the project, do a right click and create a new file with the name tsconfig.json, right, and then copy this stuff from here and paste that into that file. Okay, simple enough. But just give me a few more minutes and I'll explain what is the purpose of all of these. Okay, so to create this file, I'm going to say tsc, which stands for TypeScript compiler --init. All right, so hit enter. It is going to create a file for you. But what you can do is right away you can set those compiler options, like you could say --types, and we pass in Cypress. Okay, then we had uh, lib. Okay, and in that we pass es6 and dom, right, and the next one is --target, and we pass in es6. We hit enter. So this is going to create the tsconfig file, the root of our project, like so. Okay, double click on that. Now in here guys, you are seeing, you know, a lot more options than what you saw in here. All right, that's why, you know, I created it like so. All right, now so the first thing that we entered was type. Okay, and we set it to Cypress. Now why so? Now this types will tell the TypeScript compiler to only include type definition from Cypress. By default, all visible type packages are included in your compilation. So where are these visible types packages? For that, let's open node modules. Okay, and you have this folder at types, expand this. And then underneath these folders, you will find all the .d.ts files. Okay, so if you do not specify this, okay, all the all these types, okay, would be available at the global space. But now since you have restricted this to just Cypress, so only Cypress type declarations are available at the global scope. Okay, so and this is how we implement, you know, Cypress code intelligence with TypeScript. In part 3 of the video series, we saw how to enable code intelligence JavaScript. In there, we had Jsconfig.json file. So let's quickly look at that. So this was our file, and we said node modules and Cypress. And under this folder Cypress, we have the types, right? We have already seen that. So same thing we have done in here like this. Okay. Now the next one is lib. Okay. So in here we have ES6 and DOM. Now in lib we tend to keep the libraries to be required for compilation. And since we work with DOM APIs like window, document, etc., we keep DOM in libs. Okay, and TypeScript also includes APIs for newer JS features matching the target we specify. For example, the fat arrow function syntax is available if target is ES6 or newer. And the last one is this decides, you know, what version of JavaScript our code would be transcompiled by the TypeScript compiler. Now, modern browsers support all ES6 features, so ES6 is a good choice. Okay, so at the root of this file, we have compiler option, and then we also have few more like include. Okay, now guys, make sure that you use double quotes in here. Single quotes won't work. So include specifies an array of file names or patterns to include in the program. Now in here we specify all the TS files inside Cypress and page folders. And if we have to do so, we just say Cypress / and same for page. Okay, so we'd like to consider these files into compilation. Okay, so we pass on that. And let's say I want to ignore this test, right? So I don't mention that. Okay, so these files will not be then considered. Same way we have one more, which is exclude. Now this specifies an array of file names or patterns to be excluded in the program. So node packages too have some TypeScript files, and we don't want those to be compiled down into JavaScript because at times, I mean, that causes issues. Okay, so then you can simply provide in here node underscore modules like so. Okay, now in case of automation, okay, I think there would be rare cases, you know, where I want to leave certain files. But if they are, okay, then you can follow either the include approach or the exclude approach. Okay, so in here, all right, what do we see? Source. So basically in development, right, we keep all the development related stuff under the source folder, and then we basically transcompile this stuff into the JavaScript file, which we can then publish on some kind of web server. Okay, so in include we mention, hey, all the source files, all the files under the source folder should be picked. But what about the exclude? So you could see that we are excluding the node file and also the test spec files. Okay, because you don't want these files to be deployed to the production. It makes sense, right? So now I hope things are clear when to use include and exclude, right? But in our case, it is saying that, you know, use this particular syntax. So if I just copy this, come in here and paste the syntax, what does this mean? And basically the trick lies in here. Okay, So this double star, okay, and then a forward slash matches any directory nested to any level, starting from the root of your project. And Tsconfig sets the root of your project. So from here, you are saying that matches any directory nested to any level, but exclude the node modules. Now this test.ts under the test folder is also considered. All right, guys. Besides that, if you really want to get the benefit of using TypeScript, if you want to leverage the features of TypeScript, I'll encourage you to enable these two options, strict type checking and additional check, and enable all of these. Okay, like so. All right, guys. So let me also quickly walk you through the package.json file. So in the dependencies, so we have Cypress, and we are also going to work on one of the plugins. So we are going to work on, Cypress file upload plugin. Then all these in here are specific to the Mocasm report that we are going to generate, all right, in this project. And then we also have TypeScript. Okay, so these are all the dependencies that I have, and like how to install all these dependencies. Either you do the copy paste and then say npm install, or you just say npm install Cypress TypeScript and so on. All right, so whatever module that you require, you know how to install that. All right, now in the script down below, and these scripts in here are for generating the Mocasm reports at the end. We move on to test case file. We have an error in here. All right, it says it does not recognize the login command. So this is my custom command. All right, and I've also created this index.ts. All right, but just like in case of JavaScript, I mentioned the path of this file, okay, this type declaration file in the Jsconfig.json. Do I need to do something similar now with Tsconfig.json? And you kind of guessed it right. Where do we need to do that? We need to add that in the types. I have to add the path. Okay, so you're going to say Cypress, and then underneath that you have support, and under that you have index.d.ts. All right, so that is one thing. Now let us look at one more thing. So we open the Cypress documentation. Okay, go to plugins. We search for file upload. Okay, this is the plugin, and in its documentation, you see in the compiler option for TypeScript, you also have to add this. And now you know the reason why, right? So that you get the IntelliSense, right? So we come in here and we add one more, like so. Okay, so now you see the error goes away. Okay, it's that simple. In the test cases, right, guys, we have not done anything. We just change the .ts. All right, then we got some errors. We fix those errors, okay, in Tsconfig by providing these type. And then down below, we mention the include and exclude elements. Okay, like so. And fingers crossed, let's give it a try. We say npm test. Right, so the test execution has started. All right, so we have got just one file and the execution has started, and 3 test cases are passed this far, which is good. All right, great. So we expected one test case to be failed out of 5, and that's the output. Now let's see if we are able to generate the report. All right, so the report is also generated finally. All right, so we open the reports folder. All right, and let me just click on this. All right, guys, so this is our report, and The first test case is passed. Okay, great. This is my second test case. Let's look at the last one because in here we have the error. So we also have the screenshot, and this is not JS file, guys. This is a TS file, as you could clearly see from here. Okay. All right, great. So that's about setting up your Cypress with TypeScript. It's not that difficult. Okay, just create your project, remove the examples folder, change all the existing JS files to TS files, and make the changes that I suggested in this video. Okay, all right, thanks for watching.